Hey everyone, it's Kristen. So we are on our last issue of the Spider-Woman miniseries, issue 4. So it's the shocking conclusion to Spider-Woman Showdown finale with Death Web. Anyway, so when we last left them, Julia had told her parents to flee. They fled. Um, the manipulator has Rachel, what we find out here, and the Death Web has captured Spider-Woman because she just was weak from the fight and it was just too much for her. So we find her. She's shackled and she can see Rachel right there because the manipulator told Death Web no, he wanted her alive. And so Rachel says, "I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay. These guys are really silly and I can for sure calm them." And the Spider-Woman's like, "What the heck are you talking about? Don't do anything foolish." And you know, these guys killed Dr. Napier and they probably murdered your grandparents too. And the manipulator said, "No, we didn't kill them. They weren't worth, going through the jungle for. So we didn't bother with them." And she tries to appeal to the scientist, Arcane, Dr. Sylvie, and Noto, like, how could you, do this to Dr. Napier, your fellow scientist, when you worked for the commission? Like, how could you betray humanity? And Dr. Sylvie says, "I was born poor in Peru, like poorer than any American can even imagine." And Noto says, "Don't underestimate the power of challenging work." Okay. Which he's like, "Oh, I guess I'm not gonna lie. If someone said, hey, I have a chance for you to be a superhero, if you take this serum," I'd be tempted, I guess, to do it. But I also know that that's not even possible. So I'd probably be like, no, I'm good. Anyway, so, because it being experimental, you don't know what is actually going to happen. So anyway, basically what they found is that Dr. Napier had left notes and written a variation of the formula that created Julia, and said, if we gave this to the original test subject, meaning Julia, the results would be, crazy. And so basically they made that formula and now they're going to give it to Julia. And they say it's a version of the neurotoxin that killed Dr. Napier. Because he said that the injecting this new version of the serum into the original test subject would produce dramatic results. And of course, the manipulator reading that was like, "Oh, I have to know what these results are. Like, I have to know." So they injected Julia with the new version of the toxin, and she already, like, immediately starts to go into convulsions. And so basically we find out that manipulator is not even there. It's a hologram. He's like, "I'd love to watch this, but I have other stuff I need to attend to." And he says, "Arcane, Dr. Sylvie, I want a full report later." So Julia sees, Rachel and the manipulator disappear. And all of a sudden they hear helicopters outside. And the FBI comes and says, "Hey, this is the FBI. You have 1 minute to surrender." So basically, Death Web teleports out of there. They're like, "No, we're not dealing with this." They leave Julia there because they pretty much think she's dead. I mean, she's already went into convulsions as soon as they injected her. And Julia's like, I have to get out of here. I just have to get out of here. So she mustered up all of her strength to get out of her strains and ends up blowing up somehow the whole building because she crawls out of the rubble and everything explodes because comic books. Because she's in the restraints. And she's like, I have to, I have to get out. Oh my gosh, I remember this game. This Tiny Toon game for Game Boy. I think I remember playing that. I think maybe my brother James had that, and I played it once or twice. I don't know. It just looks familiar for some reason. So anyway, huge. She pulls out of her restraints. Huge explosion. Crawls from the rubble. Another huge explosion. She wakes up and she sees a space before her. It's Mike Clemson, the guy who, the bad guy who was in charge of her, but was actually working for an even worse bad guy. And basically, he took her from that site, and now they're in California, the Mojave Desert, because he wants revenge on the manipulator for getting him fired, basically. And she's like, he says, the only reason I grabbed you or saved you, basically, is because you might know where the manipulator and Death Web are. And she's like, as a matter of fact, I do. I think Rachel was giving me a clue because she mentioned the word silly and she mentioned the word con. So that makes me think they're in the Silicon Valley. And so she also is like, I feel like you hated me even before you knew me, Clemson. What's the deal? Like, why? And it turns out that he was in love with Julia's mother, and yet Julia's mother picked, um, Cornwall, Walter Cornwall, instead of him. And so he has this vendetta against Julia because of what her mom did. And it reminds me of that scene in Freaky Friday where Lindsay Lohan's English teacher basically fails her for everything and sends her to detention all the time because he's mad that her mom wouldn't go to the dance with him. That's what it makes me think of. And basically, Julia's like, that's really messed up. And Mike's like, I'm surprised you're even still alive. Didn't they inject you with something? And she's like, actually, I have no idea why I'm still alive. So they go to this base in the Silicon Valley where Julia thinks they are. She uses her spider sense, but not like spider sense like Spider-Man's, but like just like this like the feeling of, just being able to feel like the smallest quiver like on a web. And she can feel that the ground underneath is hollow. So they blast through there. And yep, Death Web and the manipulator are below them. And so he gives them all a new batch of the antidote. And he said, he said he combined the ingredients in a new way because he was curious what would happen. So they all feel kind of, weird and dizzy and weak at first. And then all of a sudden, Tarek grows like twice as big. Like, he is huge now. He's like 15 feet. So apparently all their powers have increased with this new dosage of the antidote that he just gave them. And Julia, Spider-Woman, busts through and says, all right, and all of Mike's guys bust through also. And Rachel's like, Mom! And basically, they make quick work of all Mike's guys. Mike slips away in the chaos because he's like, well, I can't compete with those guys, so I'm just gonna get out of here. And it's not going the way I thought it would because, their powers are now amplified. So whereas it might have been with all those guys, they might have won, definitely now they totally lost because, yeah. So the manipulator says, don't waste your time with all those guys. You need to save something to finish off Spider-Woman. And Spider-Woman thinks, well, but that's weird because he wouldn't normally say that. He would just be like, kill them all. Or no, not really. Sorry, that reminds me of something that my niece said. It was funny. Okay, quick story. This is a couple years ago. They're still young. They're in, car seats, booster seats. No, they were in car seats. And so I told them a mosquito got into my car, and I said, if you see it, you should kill it. And the older one, who was like 5 at the time, she's like, but I don't want to kill it. It's part of nature. And I said, okay, well, it's fine. Maybe I shouldn't have said this, but I said, okay, fine. It's going to bite you and suck your blood. And then she went, kill them all. And then Carly, who was 3 at the time, she started crying. Oh, it was so funny though. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said, okay, fine, it's going to bite you and suck your blood. But it just, I don't know. It's sorry. Random, just brought up that memory. It always makes me laugh because it was so funny. I wish I had it on video. It was so hilarious. Anyway, so basically, Spider-Woman was like, he wouldn't say that. He wouldn't tell them to go easy, like, on those guys. He would, expect them to take care of everyone. So anyway, she thinks when I first got the serum that supposedly gave me my powers, like the double dose, they told me to go home, or the first time I got the serum that gave me my powers, they told me to go home and rest. Like, so maybe it takes like, some time for your body to like acclimate to the serum and for, your body to process it. So what she thinks is I need to wear them out. I need to wear them down. So she gets hit basically full force with one of Dr. Sylvie's webs. And she's like, that was a direct hit. I should be finished. But, even though it burns, it seems to be healing instantly. I'm having trouble turning the page. There. Okay. So she realizes that she got a power upgrade with the dosage of the serum that they gave her, but her body has had time to process it because it's been like, at least a whole day or at least hours since she got it. And whereas they just got their serum maybe like 5 minutes ago. So basically Dr. Sylvie falls. She's like, why do I feel so dizzy all of a sudden? And punching Noto, like I said, the grad student, it causes his powers to go crazy, and he starts backdooring, teleporting everywhere until he just collapses on the floor. And then she has a Tarek to face, and then all of a sudden he just falls on his own, like under his own weight, like a pile of bricks. And so she, approaches the manipulator and says, this is where I finish what Dr. Napier started. Give me Rachel. Give me my daughter. And he's like, you wouldn't dare hurt me while I have her. I have a hostage. So she's like, you're right, I won't. And what he doesn't realize is the manipulator, there's this huge claw reaching out from behind him. So it's Tarek, and he has grabbed him and pulled him down to the floor and is holding him down because, he wants his revenge too. In his weakened state, that was the best he could do. So Rachel and her mom reunite. And of course, Julia notices that Mike has fled. Like he's nowhere to be found. And Rachel's like, what about grandma and grandpa? Are they okay? And she's like, yeah, they're okay. I'm going to go to Peru personally to go get them. Um, and, Julia's like, maybe I should stop being Spider-Woman. And her daughter's like, no way. I love you being Spider-Woman. You cream those jerks. And then the military police, I can't tell who exactly they are, show up, and Julia's like, what took you guys so long? And that's the end of it. So it says, Spider-Woman continues in Forceworks 1, debuting in January. So basically that was, the origin of Spider-Woman. The second Spider-Woman, because we talked about the first one, and she becomes the second Madam Web. Of course, not at this point, obviously. But I just thought that was really interesting. I thought that was, since she's in the new movie, you get a better sense of who she is. And of course, in the new movie, though, she's not the Julia Carpenter from the comic books, because I've only seen a couple trailers, but it seems like the Julia Carpenter from the movie is young, not married, no kids, so it's not the same character. It's just that they borrowed from the character. Like they used the name in the costume. And that seems like maybe they'll have the same powers. We'll see. Like I said, I thought it was interesting that the doctor was like, well, if you have webs, they're mental. Like, how would he know that? So, yeah. It's interesting how the different Spider-Man and Spider-Woman, Spider-Woman different powers. Like Spider-Woman, her costume causes her to glide, and she has Venom Blast. But yet, this Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman does not have Venom Blast, but she does have the psi webs, which is weird. Like I said, they never explain how they knew that she would have those. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope that gives you a little bit more insight into who Spider-Woman Julia Carpenter is and who Madam Web is. So until next time, bye.